Sure.
Hi, good afternoon, Parna, and good afternoon, Bansi. We are glad to have you on Curious Time, and this is for our Teachers' Day special edition. We have been supporters of Mukam, and Mukam has been a well-wisher of Curious Times, and our publications are read by your children. This is our time. Today is a special day. We want to honor the teachers and teaching community, and therefore we are going to be asked, we've asked you to come and also share the journey of the teachers that you've been associated with over past 6 months, how they transitioned from how they were teaching 6 months back to now. And I think that's our framework for which we're going to be speaking to you. And welcome to this session.
Great. Thank you, Deepthi. First of all, it's always lovely to work with Curious Times. We've had this partnership now for the last couple of months. And I must say, even on behalf of Bansi, that the children at Mukam, this entire concept of learning through a very easy to read and comprehend newspaper format, it has been a very enriching experience. We did start the partnership with you a little before the COVID period started. But I think in some ways it really benefited us because the formats that you have, the digital newspaper formats that you have, I must say, has been a good help for the children, and it's far reaching, it's easy to circulate, it's easy to conduct and let them know about what's happening in a very simple format. So first of all, on behalf of Bansi and the Mukam team, it's been a good run, and we look forward to many more such innovative partnerships and initiatives. Uh, Coming now to this entire concept of how the run has been, and specifically to honor the teachers on Teachers' Day. Yes, this year is going to be a different year. As everyone says, it's a new normal. So it will be a new normal even for the teachers on Teachers' Day. Um, Let me kind of, just touch upon certain things that I have perceived, I have felt in this entire lockdown period. So when it comes to education, the first thing that I really observed that the speed and the agility with which the private schools could transition to the online mode or the digital mode was just amazing. The lockdown started, say, on a Friday, and starting Monday, most of the private schools were onto Microsoft Teams, were onto Zoom. They had the process set up. They could have had teething problems, but they also came up with guidelines fairly in about 2 weeks' time. So it was a very easy transition for them. What this entire episode, I think what it has also brought to light is what we are all calling now officially the digital divide. So while the economic divide always existed, the digital divide has become starkly, it has come out in the open. So what was happening is, and what we perceived in Mukam, which we struggled for a little bit in the beginning, is how do we impart this online education to the children, to our children, who may not have access to tablets, to smartphones, to computers. And even if they do have access in some cases, most of them either do not have access to internet or they have access to a very spotty, unstable internet. So these were the two major challenges that we were facing. And by way of reading various media reports, what I also understand is that that challenge primarily continues. To add to that, in terms of teachers who teach in government schools, government aided schools, they did not have the aids and the tools to very easily transition into this entire mode of digital training. So these were the two main challenges to impart education to the children who belonged to government and government aided schools. Addition to that, I think what also did not gather a lot of momentum is all the authorities were talking about food, sanitation, hygiene, but somewhere the reforms that could be done at a macro level in the education sector is still not being talked about that openly. It has been left to individual schools to undertake what is best for them. I think what Bansi and I have been consistently talking about is that these are a set of children whose basic concepts yet continue to be weak. And if they have any kind of a gap in education, the regression that they will face is far higher than what a normal child could face. So they're going to forget all their concepts, their skills rapidly. And the biggest risk that we are facing is we will have a far higher dropout rate, and those children will never ever go back to school. So probably you are looking at 30 to 40% of your population from the vulnerable section of the society not being educated over the next couple of years. So you're going to have a high rate of illiteracy over the next many, many years. With that in mind, we did not stop. We thought that we had to do what we had to do. So we started doing campaigns, and I think Bansi will talk about those campaigns. But we did campaigns, we did a lot of social media marketing. We reached out to our friends, our families, our volunteers, and we did our best to gather a lot of these digital tools, and we commenced teaching them. There have been bumps, there have been successes. I'm sure the bumps have been far higher than what has been faced by the private schools. But I still think that the silver lining that has come out of this is that we are now able to create a digital environment. So what happens is when things get back to normal, we can still leverage this particular mode of learning to now reach out to a far larger audience. So as an example, tomorrow, if we just have a bunch of children who we can impart a certain program of ours, who is sitting somewhere in far-flung Bihar, we now know how to impart this type of education and we can undertake it. So we've now learned the skill of outreach, and I think in future the children can really benefit from this outreach. However, having said that, we continue with the entire mode of online teaching, and considering there's still no clarity and schools will probably not open till December this year, which is almost whole of the academic year gone, we are going, it's been a good journey, a very informative journey, but that's something I hand over now to Bansi to talk about the journey. Thank you.
Hi, Dipti. Thank you for having us. Thanks, Parna. But basically, what Parna said, I'm pretty much on line with that. I'm going to speak a little more about what exactly Muqam did and what we did as a team. So basically, when this so schools actually shut down a little before the absolute announcement and absolute shutdown, which was given to the entire city or country at that point of time. So because of which it was really unsure. We were not sure of how long it will be there. Maybe in a month's time it will open. People were not sure at all. It actually took us, at least Muqam, it took us about a month of doing a lot of things to put it together so that we can start teaching online. So there was literally a month's gap with a lot of back-end work happening. So the children had to be given pretty much a holiday. To cover that up, though, we did continue, instead of giving the summer break that we do, we did continue working through that time. So they didn't miss out too much on the academics. Well, in the back-end preparation, the kind of things that we had to do, like Panna said, we ran a big campaign via social media and like our volunteers reaching out to people on personal fronts, where we were looking for smartphones, tablets, computers, laptops, and we actually gathered them, or some people even donated money, which we actually bought second-hand phones from. and we donated those to the children. We tried to do it in such a way that since we didn't even want to encourage that two families staying nearby really go to each other's houses, which would also be risky, we had to do things where we provided a phone or a device for each family. Luckily, the advantage here is that these people coming from the kind of communities, they have many children in the house itself. You know, they are either staying in joint families or they have multiple siblings. So it was not bad because one phone would be shared by 3 to 4 children. While this was happening, even adjusting to which way would they be learning. So, like we said, something like a Zoom, Google Duo, Google Meet, all that requires a very high amount of data, which the children don't have. Also, so therefore, we had to do things where we gave the option of maybe, sometimes giving in or recharging their phones. But in the long run, it didn't make much sense because we didn't have much control over what they do for the remaining time. Their class is probably 1 hour, 2 hours, but then there are cousins, everyone wants to watch a movie because they were given data, and they've run out of those things, and eventually the education is still suffering just as much. So we actually went into the mode where we do Zoom calls approximately twice a week, and we stick mainly to doing WhatsApp work. In the process, I think what happened is a lot of. Can you hear me? I can't.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, great. So what happened in this whole thing is that we landed up making a lot of digital material, a lot of digital resources, a lot of schools who had tied up with us, a lot of volunteers and our teachers came together to put material together. We had the teachers were constantly making like videos where they're actually teaching, making worksheets that can be sent over the phone. Now, a couple of things that were an issue that we teachers faced, at least in our thing, not all teachers had enough data and internet and phones. They all had phones actually, but not laptops. And sometimes when you're making presentations, when you're making worksheets, it is much easier to work with a laptop. It's very difficult to do it from your phone. So we had to arrange for those as well. Some of them even borrowed, some were taken on rent, all of that. Data has been provided to the teachers by us. Along with that, we have had issues like some of the teachers who have been there, who've been teachers for a long time, but are used to a very classroom format. They had a lot of trouble so we immediately had to start, and we're still running certain programs which are for teachers training. So teachers are not only spending time doing the planners and actually teaching class, but they are also spending time with us as a team to teach each other how to work with different formats, what kind of things to do. Another thing that in the beginning, the first month which we did as a pilot, we did because it was the end of the academic year, we had already taught that year's portion more or less. So we did a lot of revision. We we were helping the children. All of that happened. But as this seemed to keep dragging on, we realized that the whole year cannot just continue with what they did last year. So we had to actually redo our portion. We obviously have some sort of curriculum that we refer to, right, every year. But we actually had to reformat a lot of things because the resources were not available to the children. So one of the things like we do, Curious Times actually help because it is a digital format. But along with that, there are things like that we've set up in Knowledge Partners, like, toy library. Now, toy and book library is material that we had at our center. It is not something that I can pass on to the kids while sitting at home. So those kind of things became a very big struggle because we had to really change the method of teaching. Also remembering that these are children, we have had problems from parents where they came and said, "Miss, my book is over." Now I do not have a paper and pen. So even if you are teaching me, how do I do this work? Extreme things like printouts and all, which a regular private school could demand from a parent, was even just absolutely out of the question for us. Like, I'll give you a simple example. Things like after teaching numbers, you do something like join the dots, which is fun for the kids, or doing mazes, which is fun for the kids as worksheets. Now, these were things that we had to absolutely eliminate from the curriculum, because I cannot expect the parent or the child to actually draw those dots and then actually make the correct shape, or draw the maze and actually do the maze. So we had a lot of those kind of struggles. The teachers have done beautifully. It took us some time to get around it, but how to work around this whole format has eventually worked out. We had to skip out a few topics, but largely we've been able to stick to about 80% of our portion anyway. We do a very large amount of things which are around fine motor skills and gross motor skills. Gross motor skills had to be lowered very, very greatly. But things like fine motor skills, is we started coming up with innovative ways of things that they could do. Like, say for example, taking their own, like at home they would find certain kinds of grains and sorting that, or things like taking their own napkins or handkerchiefs, because these are things that are available for the children at home. So tying those, instead of the lacing boards that we would have at a in a toy library, we had to start telling them that let's button your own shirt or let's tie your own shoelaces. So we had to shift those kind of things. But like I said, we were able to do those kind of things. Some very interesting methods came up, which we realized that were out of the box and we didn't consider before, because there was the liberty of using the material that was already available to us. So that was also an interesting journey for us as teachers. Another thing that I think the teachers faced in this whole thing is that we had to land up working far many more hours, because we had to change our planners. We had to come up with methods. So there's a lot of preparation in terms of, like, if I was supposed to teach in a class, I would have all my material and I would be teaching that class, and that's about it. Over here, what happened is I had to gather the material, make a video of it, then present it to the teacher, to the children, and explain it to them. After which we had to send out material for them to actually do the worksheets or do whatever material, the activity, then have them return it back to us, spend time checking it, and on the basis of that plan the next day. This kind of became a much longer process, even though the basic steps are same. Like, even in class we used to make them do things, but it's like simultaneous checking that is happening. There are more than one teacher in the class. So there are volunteers. Somebody's taking care of the checking or walking around and helping a few weaker kids. Also, another thing, as an NGO, that we had to provide, I count that as had to, because that is how we vision our role as, is that we try and take the place of the person who's the guide. Now, over here, the parents are not educated. So a private school could tell the parent, you sit next to your child and make sure they're doing what we are telling them. I couldn't do the same thing. So we had to actually tell the children that, once you attempt this, you can call us back or you can message us and we will call you back. Because sometimes they would say that we don't have money to call you. So we'd say, okay, WhatsApp is free. So you just, or give us a missed call and we will call you back. And we actually had to reteach so many concepts to children one-on-one over the phone or small short, WhatsApp video calls for them to actually get it. And we could not limit it to a specific amount of hours, because children were trying to do their work over different times. They had to adjust it according to the other siblings doing work in the house. So we had to actually take it as whoever can make themselves available, and how much ever we have to make sure we are there, because that's the only way that they would not miss out. Another thing I think that the teachers really went out of their way is that they also had household chores. Like we all know, all the house help was missing during this time from everybody's house. So they had a lot of house responsibilities. along with that, a lot of them have their own children. So they had to also make devices available for their children for specific hours during their private school timings, because I think most of our teachers have children going to private schools. Even whichever board, whether it was an SSC as in Maharashtra board or a central board, they are all going to private schools. There they have very, very strict rules. There the parents were supposed to. So my teachers were playing the parents' role and sitting next to the child, making sure they are attending school, doing their work, also making preparations. So we've actually landed up working far many more hours. And every time when all this was going, we constantly every week have had 2 to 3 teachers meetings. Now, of course, it has reduced and it has come to about 1 in a week or 1 in 10 days. Also, another thing that we did as an organization, which I think hats off to my teachers for this, is that we try to even be a great amount of emotional support to the parents. Because if they didn't have that support, it would be very difficult for them and the children to function. There was a lot of anxiety, a lot of people wanted to travel away. So I'm not even talking, Dipti, to you about the people who actually moved away or didn't have a phone and could not access us at all, or the number, because we almost dropped to 50% of the children we were able to reach out to. Like in general, if we have 800 children, right now we are only working with 400. That's the amount of drop we've had because the children have moved away. And in their villages, they won't have. But within these children that are available, we literally used to do once a week to once in 10 days, a call to every parent, a one-on-one call to every parent. So the children were divided by the class to the specific teachers, and they actually called every parent and spoke to them about what kind of trouble they were having, whether it was, related to eating, losing a job, helping the children study. A lot of them felt helpless also, because they were like, if we knew if we were educated, if we knew, we would have been able to teach our children. Then a lot of children who were in so one of our centers, which is St. Stephen's, is only till the 7th grade, after which the children move out to another school. Now, when this happened, the end of the year was fine, but as soon as it was May, they didn't have another school to go to. All schools were shut. A lot of schools had shut down admission also, because nobody wanted to keep admission offices open. So many children were struggling to get through school. Parents are uneducated. They don't have a way of, accessing e-forms online and actually, filling them out, what to write in those e-forms. Some of the parents were even ready that hum log loan le lenge, hum log paisa de denge. And schools were also in that case being relatively nice, that thoda installment mein paisa de do to chalega, at least if they are getting admission. But we've actually followed up with parents how to get the e-forms, what to fill in each thing to be able to get admission. So, overall, I think it was in some way, I think it is only a teacher who had that kind of commitment or passion towards their work as well as the children, who would have been able to sustain it, at least in the NGO sector. While this was happening, honestly, from our end, to be honest, from an NGO perspective, I know that other NGOs may not have, but we had a little bit of a bank issue. And literally for my team, I could not pay them for a month. They had to, I did cover up the pay. We paid them the next month, but they were literally working for 2 months without pay. It's the same month where they got paid for both the months, So it was great in a way to have a team who was so dedicated, and they understood that, okay, this is an organization and we are responsible for children who come from a much worse background, and they're helpless. It is not something that they're choosing to do कि हमको पढ़ना नहीं है, हमको ये करना नहीं है. It's not laziness. It's not unwilling, behavior. It's just that you're really badly stuck. We had parents who would say that बहुत सारे बच्चे हैं, हमको पता नहीं है कैसे manage करें. So there would be a teacher who would be taking responsibility of a certain child in an older class where they had little more technical material to be taught, whereas a parent is attending to the younger child where they had simpler stuff and videos that they could refer to with a lot of combination of Hindi and English. Another thing that the teachers had to really do is constantly be available in multiple mediums. All our teaching had to be done in multiple mediums. Because each class, like for the older kids, we more or less stuck to English because we were addressing the children directly. As the years were getting younger, we started at some point, like with the second to fourth grade, we were attending to both the child as well as the parent. We were addressing both, so we could use a combination. Whereas anything from first standard and below, everything teaching the child the video would go out in English, but how to teach the child, how to assist the child, what is the meaning of the activity, why it is being done, everything had to be sent in messages, audios, as well as videos. So three formats were being used, and they were all three being done in Hindi and Marathi.
Okay.
So we could reach out to as many parents so that this work wasn't stuck. Basically, it was a lot of team effort and just a lot of hours being put into this whole thing. We are far more stable now. We do see a big gap, like Parna said. We are actually looking forward in a way to schools reopening because we know that there will be a little more attendance, a little more control from our end in terms of providing resources. At the same time, we are also dreading it because there are so many children who have moved away and so many parents who are saying that अगर हम आएंगे तो भी हम आएंगे क्योंकि हमको पहले जॉब चाहिए हमारे पास उतना पैसा नहीं है. So what they are doing is the same community. The fathers are coming back and taking just one kholi and living together. They used to come with families, so they each one had their own kholi, right? Instead of that, now 4-5 of them are coming and they are sharing that particular house, so they have to pay little rent. They cannot afford to bring the families, so they're like, "नहीं बच्चे लोग गांव में रहेंगे." So now again, even if they come back and are trying to set up, the children are still away and are still missing out. So there is a very mixed feeling over here where we're dreading coming back because we know